So I left my house and I did a thing. Here we are, 2 years in a row. The Robert McCammon book signing event at Alabama Booksmith. Obviously, it's not for the same book. This is 7 Shades of Evil. I'm going to find out if I'm, what shade of evil I am. Maybe I'd say pale fail. I don't know. I think that's my shade. So we're going to walk into Alabama Booksmith. I don't know why it's important to document that I walked into the place, because you're gonna know I'm in there anyway. So, well, let's go in. Let's go check it out. Oh, it looks like there's poo or blood on the stairs. You see that? I don't know if that's poo or blood. It's a shade of evil for sure.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. Oh, well, listen, thanks everybody for being here on this nice summer afternoon. I really appreciate it.
Hey friends, if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you know I am a McCammon fan. And I saw him last year when he was promoting King of Shadows at Alabama Booksmith. And at the time, the only book in the Matthew Corbett series I had read was Speaks the Nightbird. And I knew 7 Shades of Evil was coming out the next year, and then the year after that's going to be Leviathan. So when I was sitting there listening to him talk about King of Shadows, and he actually read an excerpt, I said, well, I better get all these books read before he comes back next year and talks about 7 Shades of Evil. And I was able to get one of the books under my belt, and I read Queen of Bedlam. If you've seen my Monday Night Live streams, go Jeff Your Shelf. I already talked about this last Monday, but it's not just that Robert McCammon is an amazingly imaginative human being. It's that he believes in the things he writes. Like, this is a true artist. He's not somebody who's just like, hey, I stumbled upon this talent. I'm a great storyteller and I can make up stories and I can sell them to publishing places that give me money for my words. No, this is a guy that really believes what he's writing. He goes into the story. When he got up there and during the event, he read a short story that he had written just for the event, you could tell the man disappeared. Well, actually, he didn't disappear. The whole room fell away. When he's reading his words and he's flowing with the sentences, it's like nobody else in the world exists. He read a story about Matthew Corbett fighting these robbers in a tavern. And you could tell he was in a tavern in the 1700s witnessing the acts that he's repeating to us. And he said as much during his talk. He said, you know, I call myself a writer, but really I'm a conveyor. A conveyor? Is that, you know, like a reporter, somebody who's just relating the facts. Somebody who's witnessing something and then just reporting it back. And it's true. It's definitely not an act. It is something he's channeling. And it's not just that he is a super talented guy who believes in what he does. He defends what he does. He stands up for his art. When a publisher recommended, the editor at Viking recommended that he, in Speaks the Nightbird, that he would have Matthew Corbett fall instantly in love with Rachel, who the woman who was accused of witchcraft in that story, and settle down with her, and then that's where he lives forever and ever. Now, if you know anything about the Matthew Corbett series, that would have killed the Matthew Corbett series. It would not have progressed the same way. You can't have a sedentary Matthew Corbett. No doubt he would have had things to do, perhaps, in that little Carolina town, but Robert McCammon had bigger and better plans. So he took that book from Viking, and at the time, Viking's publishing Stephen King. So this is him not just taking his ball and going home, but leaving the NFL Super Bowl and going home. Like, he walked away. He turned his back on it. And what a warrior that requires. He's somebody who spent from the years from 1992 to 2002 not being published. That's a huge amount of time for a writer. And he really believed in his stories, and he stood up and he fought for them. And he still does. So that was great. I loved hearing that. But not only is he a super talented guy who believes in what he does and defends what he does, he's incredibly generous with his time. He sat with every question anybody asked. At the signing line, you could see in my video, I'll show it to you, how he just sat and he talked to me. You know, there's a whole line of people. He had just signed like 300 books to sell at Alabama Booksmith. He just sat through the whole winding line of people. I was near the end. And he was still, he signed my 7 books, my 8 books, whatever I brought to him, and just had a conversation with me as a fan, as somebody who wanted to hear from the guy. And I'm an idiot, but I'm a considerate idiot. And I felt like, I don't want to hold you up. I don't want to waste your time. You've already given us so much enjoyment and entertainment and attention at this event. So it was great. And then beyond just meeting Robert McCammon, he brings together the people who all share the joy in his works. And so I had so much in common with so many people in that room. And they were all great people, just a great community. You guys, the people watching this video, more than likely, are some of the best people I could ever meet. This was Robert McCammon signing my books and talking to me. And I'm just going to play the whole thing. The audio is what it is, but I'm glad to share it with you. I have some books.
All right, you got some books?
Got a couple.
Okay.
I feel bad because I saw what you signed in your video promoting the event.
Yeah.
Those big mountain stacks of books. You had to have, did you ice your wrist?
No, it worked out okay. It worked out.
I don't know.
You do rub though. You start rubbing.
Yeah.
Rub. You know,
It's carpal tunnel.
It gets a little painful. But anyway, but sign or make out to, or just sign? Or
Just flat sign, whatever. Yeah.
just sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the inscribed copy, but I feel like dealt with so much.
Let me choose. You know, I'll inscribe one if you like.
Okay.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Will do.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And you want me to inscribe these, or does it matter? Would you rather me just sign? Or what? Okay. Just sign. Okay. No, that's fine. That's fine.
I mean,
So I haven't seen that video, but I think when they speed it up or something, I think they.
yeah, there was just a nightmare.
Nightmare.
I think somebody was going to maybe slip in a power of attorney contract the next day. Now we own Robert McCammon.
But you know, it's what you need to do. You need to sign for people, and that's a good thing. So, where are you from?
Originally Chicago, but
Yeah.
Chattanooga around there.
Yeah. You like that?
Love it.
Do you really?
Love it.
How long has it been since you've been in Chattanooga? How long has it been?
I've only been here 2 years.
Oh, 2 years. Okay.
Yeah. I was 50 years or 49 years in Chicago.
Yeah.
And Chattanooga is like where Chicago was when I was a kid.
Is that right?
Just the friendliness.
Really?
The people were warm.
Yeah.
Chicago lost that.
Well, I was in Chicago, I guess 15 years ago. Yeah. And I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the visit. I wasn't very long.
Yeah.
But it was nice. You know.
It used to be like I never had 50 years.
Yeah.
I was born and raised, my family, all from
And you
Chicago.
thought you'd be there.
I thought I was going to be there.
Sure. No.
Turn the cold wind.
So, and what was it that sort of turned you off a bit on Chicago?
Well, it's a colder, nastier place, really.
Oh, is it?
For the first time in mine and my wife's lives, we're like, we don't feel safe.
No, it's not.
In the city. Like, you know a city, you know back and forth, you know the neighborhoods, you know the people.
Yeah.
And you know where our no-go zones and where
Right. Okay.
you kind of know the culture.
Yes, you do.
Well, that whole stuff spread everywhere. You can make that one.
Okay. Sure. To Jack?
Jeff.
You know, that's a shame. That's a shame. That's a shame because it's a great city. Well, like San Francisco.
That was great. That's unexpected.
Used to be my favorite place to go, and I would go to San Francisco. Just a great place, you know.
Yeah.
Walk around, enjoy the city, and now you can't.
And all I see is what the videos that come out of there, so I don't have any personal experience, but that is shocking.
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, and I know some people who live there who have lived there for a while, and they had to get out because the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
That you think you know, usually would know the areas of the city not.
And you can tell. You can tell when that wind, it's just a different tone. It's a different vibe. It's a different place to you. It just feels like it turns.
It's weird. That's a strange thing.
Yeah, it is. It's I guess it's something that you can only see after you've been there. And
after you've been there a while and see the change. Yeah.
Well, if we get a picture, I don't
sure.
want to hold you
that's
up.
good.
All right, you're ready.
Yeah, we'll get a picture
at the end here.
Oh, so some of the things he revealed in his talk were that there's a really brutal scene in Leviathan. That's the last book in the Matthew Corbett series, which I will have read by the time he comes back to do an event for Leviathan. I will have read Mr. Slaughter, River of Souls, Freedom of the Mask, Cardinal Black, Providence Rider. Did I say that one? I'll have them all read. And King of Shadows as well. And Seven Shades of Evil. So I got some work to do. But I'll be sure that there can't possibly be anything left for me to wonder about with the rest of the series, and I'll be all caught up. But he said there was a really brutal scene, and the reason why he created such a brutal scene in the book was because he didn't think it was enough to just talk about good and evil. You had to put it on display. You had to show the evil. And it shook him. And here's this man writes stuff that when he tries to read it, he said he tried to read one of his short stories at an event, a short story called Strange Candy, and he couldn't do it. Twice he tried to read it, but he got so choked up, he had to have audience members come up there and finish it for him. So he feels what he writes. And so a brutal scene like that makes an impact, leaves a scar. He said there was a similar thing in Mr. Slaughter. He said there's the farmhouse scene in Mr. Slaughter that was really hard to write. Since I hadn't read Mr. Slaughter yet, that was a bit of a spoiler, but not much because I still don't know what happens. My brother-in-law, who went with me to this event, he said that's a scene he just finished reading the night before we went to the event, and it shook him. So, you know, when you're a horror fan, that's an enticement to read the story. He also said he can't do a sequel to Swan Song. As much as everybody would love more time in that universe, he said it's just like the old adage, you can't step into the same river twice. And that means the river's constantly flowing. And you put your foot in there at one time, if you stand in a river, that's that moment. And all that water and everything is still flowing downstream, so it's still moving along. If you step out and step back into the river, it's like a different river. You know, that's the idea. And it's been so long, and it's sort of who he was at the time, the author he was, the man he was. When he wrote Swan Song, he's not that guy anymore, and the story's not the story anymore, and he's lost touch with it. And it's fine. Like, he created a thing. I'm sure he loved the thing. Everybody loves the thing. And I think we're going to have to be happy with that. I sure am. But the funny thing is, he was talking about covers of his books, and he said he hated the early covers for his books. So everybody who had a Swan Song or a Wolf's Hour, that this was an iconic title treatment with the way that type was sort of creating a perspective. Like it was casting a shadow or whatever they were going for, whatever the art director was going for. Everybody who grew to love that look, and that became branded McCammon iconography and style. You should know he did not like this. He said he met the art director who worked on these covers, and the person was very colorful and gaudy and overdone and just not his style. But it worked. I mean, when I saw these, you know, they had other books that had this title treatment. They Thirst and Usher's Passing, maybe. They had this title treatment, and that it worked. We dug it. We liked it. It meant it's a new Robert McCammon book. Of course, that was what we were really there for. Last year, I got my Swan Song signed by the man, and he dated it too. So that was cool. I was thrilled. This is a book I've had since I was 15. read it twice, beat to hell. It went with me at quite a distance. So to have him sign this book meant a lot. I also took the card from the event. There were these little business cards. I forgot to grab one for the 7 Shades of Evil, but I got something different for that. And the other thing he said in terms of, as he's a conveyor of information from, you know, not a writer, he's more just relating these facts, is that he doesn't outline. Because he's like, if I outline, then I've written the story. He discovers the story along with the characters. The characters tell him the story. They share the story with him. So he doesn't outline. He never does. He never has. So what did I get signed and what did I get at the event? So the event was for the trade edition of 7 Shades of Evil. I'm getting the deluxe from Levidian. The deluxe will be toward the end of the year, will be announced and released. So, but the trade edition preceded it, and it's a beautiful trade edition. It's a Levidian trade edition. So it's not phoned in, you know what I mean? It's a beautiful, beautiful book. So I got this, and it is a lovely thing. And everybody who bought a book and attend the event had a sticker, so they could get up into the event and hear Robert McCammon speak. And I saw It's Terrific do this as well. I did it, and then I saw him do it. But I thought it was a cool idea to adhere it to the end paper as a sort of book plate. And I wanted it down near the bottom. I don't know why. I thought it looked cool, so I put it there. But this is not just a trade edition. It is a signed trade edition. They sell these at Alabama Booksmith if you want a signed trade edition. The event's over with, of course, but you can get a signed trade edition from Alabama Booksmith. And I would recommend that you subscribe to the newsletter, because he will come back for Leviathan. If it's done next year, he'll be back next year. And I will be there for sure. So what else did I get signed? I bought the trade paperback bundle from Levidian, and that came with a signed Mr. Slaughter. And so the other 4 titles were not signed. So I got these all signed. So now I have a matching set of signed trade paperbacks from Levidian. And I mean, again, just like the trade hardcover from Levidian, these are elevated trade editions. They're not just run-of-the-mill standard trade editions. They are beautiful. And now to have them signed, they don't have signature sheets. Mr. Slaughter has a signature sheet, but to have them all signed is so cool. But I also got Queen of Bedlam signed. This is the hardcover. A friend of mine knew I really, really wanted this book. He's clearing off his shelves, and he said, I have a hardcover, Queen of Bedlam. Do you want it? I said, yes. What do I owe you? He said, it's free, dude. Thank you. You can have it. And I was blown away. I mean, these aren't that easy to find, and it meant a lot. It meant a lot. So the book came 2 days before the event, so I was able to take it over to Robert and get a signed trade edition of Queen of Bedlam, which is super awesome because Levidian can't do the trade edition of Queen of Bedlam. They can't get rights to it, can't get rights to Speaks the Nightbird. So those two won't see a Levidian publication. So this is the only way to get it, but also it means a lot to me because of the person who gave it to me. So that's always going to be a super special spot for me. And then going along with that theme, I also got, if you've seen on the channel, I talk about these next 2 books quite a bit. I got, this came to me from Flash, who is a good friend of the channel. I met him. We actually had a beer together in my town where I live now, and it was a great time. And he gifted me this Boy's Life Gone South trade edition. I don't think I've read Gone South, but I don't even have a hardcover of it. So to make it even more special, I had it signed and then inscribed to me. I didn't have that done on any of the other books. because I was worried about wasting Robert McCammon's time. It's silly, I know, when he's like, do you want these flat signed or do you want them inscribed to you? I said, just flat sign them because you've done so much already. But for this one, I asked him to inscribe it. Also, I got this book, mine, a hardcover first edition from Ron, who's also a friend of the channel. He's there every Monday. Hey, Ron, what's up? And I had to get this one signed by Robert McCammon as well. Fun fact, I found out that Robert dropped the R in his name for signing reasons. I thought it was like legally he had a contract and Robert R. McCammon was the published author of some work. But he changed his name, his author name, to Robert McCammon, dropping the R to get around some legal issue. I didn't know. But it was merely so he wouldn't have to sign the R in Robert R. McCammon and speed things up and save his wrist a little bit. I also got I've never had a paperback of Wolf's Hour. I read it as a paperback when I was a stock boy at Woolworth. I was taking out the garbage one day. This was like back in 1989. And I was going through the books, and we had a bunch of books that had to be discarded because they were unsold. And if you don't know this, when a retailer, I don't know if they still do this, but when a retailer couldn't sell a paperback, they would just rip the cover off and mail that back to the publisher. I don't know what that does, but you're not allowed to sell the paperback then. It's garbage. You have to discard it to prove that it wasn't sold. And I saw that book without the cover, The Wolf's Hour, sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, it's Robert McCammon. I just read Swan Song. Dude, look. And I grabbed it and I read it, and oh my God, it was amazing. But I had since lost that book. I had a flood in my basement. So I bought this one on eBay for a very reasonable price. I think it was like 20 bucks. And it's a first edition, first printing, in really great shape. That spine has one sort of crease in it, but it's subtle and it's not really that bad. And so I had Robert McCammon sign it. And so now I have a matching set of two paperbacks that I read when I was 15. I mean, obviously not this exact one, for the nostalgia. And since he's there, and I'm like, oh, that would mean a lot. In some ways, these mean a whole lot more than some of the other signed books in my collection, especially this one, just because it's traveled with me so many years. And then finally, one little last mind-blowing thing. Now, I've already shown you Queen of Bedlam, Boy's Life Gone South, and mine that were gifted to me from some incredibly great humans and meant a lot. But at the event, so those are the ones I brought to the event, and I was like a little choked up when I brought them up to the table to get him to sign, looking at that, thinking this was the generosity and kindness of my friends that allowed me to have these books. You know, there was a moment, but adding to that, I had been talking to somebody, he's been sharing, you know, he shared some of his collecting with me in private messages and some of his life with me. And you get to know people. Like you don't meet them, you're not in the same room with them, but you get to know people. And I'd gotten to know this guy, and he's a really great guy, and he's been in the forums forever, big hardcore collector. He's been collecting a lot longer than I have, and so he's amassed quite a number of books, and just a stellar human being. And before we went to the event, he's like, hey, I heard you wanted a Wolf's Hour, because, you know, I'd been talking about how a paperback, I have a paperback, but my old eyes ain't gonna read this. You know, I'm gonna want to read a hardcover, and a hardcover of Wolf's Hour is just crazy. It's so hard to source. I actually talked to some people who are close to Robert McCammon, who are familiar with his publishing queue, and I asked if they would ever do a Wolf's Hour in hardcover or trade edition, something a little bigger. And they said they're working on it. They want to get it done. But if they can't get it done in 2025, those rights expire. And so they go back to the author, and he can sell them wherever he'd like. And so if they can't get it done, a deal done before 2025, then definitely after. So I'd been pining for this book. This guy knew it, and he said, hey, I'm bringing Wolf's Hour there to get signed, inscribed to me. But we'll work out a deal. Would you want it? I'm like, the price is just crazy. I have a buy-in freeze. I can't do anything right now. I'd be happy to trade you for it. You know, he's like, all right, well, you know, wow, yeah. He realized how much it was worth. Then at the event, I'm sitting there, and he puts it in my lap. He's like, here, dude, here you go. No strings attached. I'm like, what? He's like, there you go, man. There you go. I'm like, dude, this is a $400 book. You know, we're buddies online. I like you. You're a great guy. But who am I to you that that you could do that? Like, I mean, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing for me. I'm just thinking of my finances right now. And as much as I love so many people in this community, I could not make a move like that. You know? And he did. He goes, nope, I just wanted you to have it. It means, because I don't even like the story. I'm like, I don't know how you cannot like this story. And bam. And later on, he pointed out that there was a book that he hadn't read from Robert McCammon. I go, I will trade you. I will send you a copy of that book to repay you in some small way for this grail that you just dropped on me. And he's like, okay. So I go, I'll hit you up when I get home for your address. And I did. And he did give me the address. And he's like, nope, that was no strings attached. Like, wow. And what do you say to that? I mean, that's just amazing. It really is. There's nothing that comes close to that. And like I said, with these other books, you know, mine, Boy's Life Gone South, and Queen of Bedlam, like, all at this one event, sort of crystallizes for me, like, what this community means to me, what it probably means to you, and all the just incredible people. Like, in this world that's drying up of humanity and care for each other, it's good to have us. And on that note, thank you for joining me this time. I hope to see you again next time. Stay frosty.
So we just saw Robert McCammon. It was amazing. We're going to get some food at Little Donkey. It's a Mexican restaurant. And apparently there's no Mexican word or Spanish word for Little Donkey. So that's why they didn't give it a Spanish name.